I'm just so thrilled that the Nashville Symphony is creating this space
Mhm.
for our Asian American community to celebrate this huge holiday. The Lunar New Year, I mean, that's the biggest holiday in many parts of Asia.
So today I'm joined by the incredible Susan Yang. She is an award-winning pianist, having won prizes at the biennial NFMC Young Artist Competition, the International Keyboard Edisiad Competition, the NASCAR Young Artist Competition, and the New York Festival and Competition. In addition to her performance work, she is also heavily involved in education and community outreach. She is an assistant professor of the practice of piano at Vanderbilt University at the Blair School of Music, where she was named the 2022 Teacher of the Year by both the Nashville Area Teachers Association and the Tennessee Teachers Association. She also works with nonprofit and community organizations such as the Nashville Chamber Music Society and A Seat at the Piano, where she helps drive social change through music. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
My pleasure.
So, just to get started, obviously, someone doesn't just wake up and become an accomplished pianist. So, could you tell us a little bit about what your personal journey with the piano looked like?
Yeah, well, it hasn't been a smooth path from beginning to end, and but from the beginning, it was actually my parents' love for music, especially my dad. He actually bought a piano before I was born because he loved music so much, and he wanted to self-teach and just to have the instrument, you know.
Mhm.
So and I was just kind of born into this family who had a piano. And when I was 4, he asked, "Do you want to start lessons?" And I said, "Sure," not knowing what that meant. But it quickly became a really big part of my life and eventually a big part of my identity. So, and I haven't stopped playing since.
That's awesome. So, at what point in your career did you decide you wanted to pursue piano as a profession?
um, it wasn't like an epiphany one day, like, oh, I want to be a concert pianist. It was a everything just kind of accumulated, you know. But even in elementary school, because it was such a big part of my life, I took it very seriously. Everybody knew that I was the piano girl. Um, and so it just, I would say by the time I was in middle or high school, even, um, it was clear to me that I was going to pursue music um, as my career path. And also, I have to thank my teachers and mentors that I had along the way who really motivated me and inspired me. So, because I had such nurturing teachers and they encouraged me to pursue this, so it just kind of worked out in that way.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Um, so, thinking of the other people that are starting piano right now, for those who are early in their piano careers, do you have any advice that you would give to them?
How early are you thinking?
I'll give a few different ages. So I have a daughter that's about to turn 4 this year. So
Okay.
as someone and I want her to play. So as someone who's just about to start, what would you say to them?
Absolutely. Actually, I have a 1-year-old, you know, and I think about, oh, how am I going to expose her um, to everything? But
Mhm.
at that age, I think it's all about play and interest. Um, I think that's a big part of uh, the nurturing, getting them interested, and you know, you read about all these like successful chess players or tennis players. You know, it all started with play, just
Mhm.
like exposing them. So um, I think coming from my own background, you know, to be very honest, the Asian culture has this like high achieving kind of attitude. So I was made to practice by my parents, and I have to admit that I didn't always enjoy it. But it did teach me very important lessons like, having discipline and time management and things like that. But I'm also kind of Americanized now, and after going through my training and education at in American
Mhm.
schools, I feel like I have a more of a balanced
Yeah.
approach. So yeah, it's not piano is not for everybody.
Mhm.
So, but I think if there's interest, I mean, definitely I would nurture and encourage that. Yeah.
Yeah. That brings me to another question. Growing up, I had a lot of friends that also played piano,
Mhm.
and some were very dedicated. I knew a girl who was homeschooled so she could practice the piano more, and and
Wow.
so I've known a lot of people that have been very dedicated, but have really like burnt out because they haven't been able to achieve that balance that you were kind of talking about. So how would you say you achieved that balance? I know you talked a little bit about like your education here, but could you maybe expand a little more on how that kind of entered into your
I'm not sure if I'm achieving that balance. It's
life?
It's more, I had a colleague one time, we were having a conversation, and he was like, it's really a juggling act. It's not balancing everything, but it's like you throw something up in the air and then you try to manage everything else. And I feel like that's what I'm doing. And definitely there's burnout. Definitely there's moments of freaking out, like, oh my gosh, did I choose the right career path? Oh, all this time that I'm dedicating. But in the end, I think it's all very personal.
Mhm.
At least for me, it's very personal, because this is my work, but this is also my passion.
Mhm.
This is a big part of my identity of who I am. So, if I try to imagine if I didn't play piano, I don't honestly, I don't know what I would be doing. So, um, yeah, it's a constant battle, you know.
Yeah,
I think in the end, it's just believing that it sounds cheesy, but believing that this is what was meant to be, and I'm very grateful that I chose this. I mean, there are hard days for sure, but in the end, it's the fulfilling element of the work
that's
that's
awesome.
keeping me going. Yeah.
I know you also talked a little bit about your mentors and teachers that helped you reach your goals and reach the place you're at now. Um, could you tell us about any specific mentors or teachers that had a significant impact on your journey?
Yeah, I had a teacher before I went to college. Her name is Helen Gleason. Um, so I was born in China,
Mhm.
and then I immigrated to the States in sixth grade. And I met her when I was in seventh grade, and she kind of uh, took me on until high school graduation. She helped me prepare for my college auditions and all that, and she was pivotal in my growth as a not just a musician, but as a person as well. She, demonstrated an incredible amount of compassion and empathy and understanding, which drives a lot of my own teaching now. I hope to pass on that legacy. Um, but yeah, I mean, she was the teacher who made me realize perhaps I can do this. Perhaps I can um, make it as a musician, or at least planted the seed in that I can take it seriously. Yeah. So, um, yeah, she come when I think about, I mean, all of my mentors and teachers have been great, but she really was the the most important one in terms of my musical, my younger musical development. Yeah.
That's awesome. You talked a little, or you mentioned that you also teach now. So maybe on the reverse side of things, what are some of the specific challenges or rewards that come with teaching music?
Um, it's so different with every student, with how we respond to our, how they respond to my teaching and just how we get along as people. But I, to be honest, I'm so grateful for my students are, I love my students. They're
Mhm.
just so wonderful. It I don't feel like there's are a lot of challenges. I mean, there are challenges in terms of like motivating them to practice or figuring out what's the right pieces to assign them, or just like the nitty gritty, like time, like signing them up for competitions and preparing for this audition and blah blah blah. But um, I love teaching. I love interacting with my students, and because I also it also teaches me. I mean, I never stop learning because of my interactions with my students. So that's one of the huge parts of my job that I love. And just getting to know them and knowing how much power I have in influencing their thinking and their, the music that I assign them says so much about what I think is important, and
Mhm.
therefore they're going to internalize that. So I just I think it's a big job. It's a big job um, that I'm very grateful for that I get to, you know, um, nurture the next generation of musicians, and um, yeah. So that's what I think about my teaching.
That's awesome. Yeah. And for anyone that's ever taught anything, you realize really quickly, like teaching is a whole different skill. Like you can be good at something and then not be a good teacher. So it's,
Absolutely. And I still feel like there's so much to learn, and my teaching is constantly evolving, as a teacher and a performer. They both kind of feed off of each other. So, yeah, it's definitely not a boring job. Yeah.
awesome. Um, Yeah, so pivoting a little again, piano is such a unique instrument in that it can really stand alone. Like you can have a solo piano performance, but it can also fit in with a group like the symphony that you're performing with soon. So how does that differ, performing alone versus performing with a group like the Nashville Symphony?
Um, I think the mental preparation is different. Just the speaking of the music itself, when I'm playing a concerto, it's a collaboration. So I can't just take all the time I want because there's an orchestra behind me.
Mhm.
So when I'm, especially when I'm practicing a concerto, I have to really know their part. I have to know all my cues. I have to know, okay, well, the clarinet comes in here. I need to count. This is where I come in. Sometimes there's like a big orchestral interlude where I kind of like have to, play, I stop, and then I hum their part, and then I come in just to kind of like rehearse with myself before I go in with the orchestra. So there's a lot of preparation on that end. Solo, I'd say, it's just a one person show. I can kind of do whatever I want with it, Um, but it's fun with the it's really really fun to play with the orchestra, and I think that's a huge dream for many pianists to
Mhm.
solo with the orchestra. It's an honor, but it is a lot of hard work in terms of preparation and communicating with the conductor, things like that. definitely a skill one has to acquire
Mhm.
to be good at it. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. You talked a lot about preparation. Could you maybe speak a little more about how you prepare for your performances?
Oh my gosh, where do I start? Um, from beginning to end, I mean, really, it all depends on what I'm preparing, you know. So if I'm preparing a solo recital, um, the standard it's changing now, but the standard is, you know, you memorize. Pianists memorize a lot. Um, so I think about I really like to program thematic recitals, you know. I like to be able to educate my audience, have some sort of educational aspect to my recital programs. But so picking out the repertoire, that's always, you know, takes takes a while. And then once I'm set on the pieces that I want to play, that's where, you know, you roll up your sleeves and do the hard work and, you know, you learn the music and you memorize. And then yeah, as time goes on, you know, when I'm like fine tuning the pieces, there's a lot of the physical practicing, but I also do a lot of mental practicing. You know, pianists, there are a lot of not just pianists, a lot of musicians. They do something called the score studying, where you practice away from your instrument. And this is something I tell my students all the time. You know, like practicing is thinking. It's really like it's so crucial what's going on in your brain. It's yes, it's a physical act, and many times we rely on muscle memory. But you know, I would say memory slips are is like one of the biggest fears. You know, when we practice when we play um, from memory.
Mhm.
And so a lot of my mental practice is to fill those holes to see, you know, where am I still weak in my memory. And then in terms of like just the practicing itself, I mean, there's all sorts of different methods. You know, you practice with metronome, you practice slow, you practice fast, you drill a passage, and you come up with various exercises to, you know, fine tune your technique in a certain passage, things like that. So there's a lot that goes into that.
For sure. Um, yeah, so I want to definitely make some time to talk about the upcoming show that you'll be performing in. Um, and so I know you're going to play with the Nashville Symphony for their Lunar New Year show. And do you have anything you're most looking forward to with that?
Oh, I'm just so thrilled that I know this is the second year that they're doing it. I'm just so thrilled that the Nashville Symphony is creating this space
Mhm.
for our Asian American community to celebrate this huge holiday. The Lunar New Year, I mean, that's the biggest holiday in many parts of Asia. So growing up, you know, that's like our Christmas, but for 15 days.
Mhm.
Um, so this is really meaningful for me. And the Yellow River Concerto, it actually came from a cantata that was written by a Chinese composer and later was arranged for piano and orchestra. And this is a tune that's so famous and tune that I grew up hearing all the time. And I feel really lucky. I'm really thankful that they asked me to do this. You know, this piece holds a very special place in my heart, and I'm just really excited to be performing this. Yeah.
That's awesome. I feel like you really just answered this. I was going to ask, being Chinese, what does it mean to you to be a part of this show celebrating Chinese and Asian culture?
Yeah, it's very heartwarming for me. So I actually grew up in Nashville, so Nashville is like my home other than my native country. And to witness the growth of this community and to, see that there's an interest in celebrating other cultures, including mine, is very heartwarming. And yeah, it means a lot. It means a lot.
That's awesome. So the Yellow River Piano Concerto itself, it has four movements. Do you have a favorite out of those? And if so, why?
I think the older I get, I'm I become more of a sucker for slower, more lyrical melodies. So definitely the second movement. Um, they're all good. They're all very characteristic in their own ways.
Mhm,
Um, but I'd say um, music wise and just playing wise, second movement has been the most enjoyable.
mhm,
Um, because the slower is not as technical and I don't get as uh, tense or anxious about, missing notes or whatnot. So the second movement is the Ode to the Yellow River, and it actually quotes a little bit of the Chinese national anthem. And it's just so every time I practice it is again, I have memories of hearing this tune, so it's
mhm.
very nostalgic for me. Um, so it just evokes all the good feels.
Yeah, that's awesome. Um, you talked a little bit about how technical the piece can be in places. Are there any specific challenges with that, especially when it comes to like interpretation, like balancing that virtuosity with being able to add your own musicality to it?
Yeah, so um, I this is my first time learning the concerto and knowing just by ear from when I used to hear the cantata as a kid, I was kind of surprised at how virtuosic the arrangers made it. And there are several arrangers who worked on this. And actually, a lot of the concerto reminds me of Liszt and Rachmaninoff. Um, that kind of like just wild virtuosic, like scales and arpeggios and diminished chords, all octaves. It's just like the stereotypical like big romantic concerto bombast and virtuosity. Um, so that's been really fun to prepare actually. And it's harder than I thought it was gonna be. Um, and yeah, so I'm treating it kind of like I how I would learn a Liszt or Rachmaninoff concerto. It's the writing is very the piano like the arrangement of the piano concerto writing is quite Western classical,
Mhm.
but with Chinese melodies. Um, but in terms of my interpretation, I think there are subtle things like I have a I tend to have like personal preferences for, say, like I want to take more time here. I want to do a diminuendo here because that sounds like what I heard growing up. So definitely like it has I have predisposed interpretation or like the way I think it should go.
Mhm.
Yeah. Than someone who's maybe never heard of
Yeah.
the cantata before. Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing that your own personal experiences are able to really help you um, in your own interpretation. Um, so in additional to the piano concerto that you're featured on, the rest of the music in the show also features a lot of Chinese and Asian music. Out of the rest of the pieces, do you have um, any favorites or anything you're looking forward to hearing?
No, because of having most of my music education done in the States, I'm actually not as familiar with Asian composers myself.
Mhm.
So this is, I'm really looking forward to the entire program. I mean, they're like, I did look over they're playing a lot of pieces.
Yeah.
There were like a couple names that I recognize, but yeah, most of them are kind of new to me. And I know it's not just Chinese tunes, there's like Korean and maybe Vietnamese too. So I'm looking forward to hearing the rest of the program. And I know there's going to be a lion dance by the Chinese Arts Alliance of Nashville, which I recently just joined their board. So want to give them a shout out and yeah, I'm looking forward to that too. Yeah, it's going to be a really fun night.
For sure. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
moving on a little bit, I know you have some other concerts coming up after this one. Are there any upcoming projects or performances that you're really excited about?
Yeah, actually, 2 weeks after this, I'm playing Rachmaninoff's Second Piano Concerto with the Oak Ridge Symphony, which is in East Tennessee. So currently, speaking of juggling and balancing, I'm practicing two separate concertos at the same time, and so that's pretty difficult
Yeah.
in itself. And then I have some chamber performances coming up. I'm actually returning to the Nashville Symphony on April 1st. They also have a community chamber concert series. So I'll be playing a couple of piano quartets by Mahler and Dvorak with a few friends from the orchestra. So chamber is always fun. It's not as the spotlight is not all on you. It's more of a team collaborative effort, and I get to play with music. I don't have to memorize,
Yeah,
so that's nice. And then I have a couple of um, performances with colleagues here at the Blair School of Music that I'm looking forward to. So yeah, it's a diverse range of music that I'm juggling, and very grateful for it, even though practicing can be hard sometimes.
yeah. I love Rachmaninoff. I've played some Rachmaninoff, and
Oh, wow.
it's not easy. So,
No, it's not. It's not. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It seems sometimes it's like, oh, why did he have to make it this hard? It seems unnecessarily hard.
yeah, and I'm a big guy. I have big hands, but Rachmaninoff's hands were very large, and he has some
Oh yeah.
strokes that stretch you for sure.
Oh, definitely, definitely. Yeah. And I don't have very big hands, so it's a struggle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so just a couple more questions here. I know in addition to, performing and teaching, you're also really passionate about the community and social justice issues. How do you use your position in the music space to further causes that you care about?
Yeah, so I play different roles with different organizations. So A Seat at the Piano is something that I co-founded with several colleagues throughout the country. They're all pianists. And this is mainly serves as a resource. So we're like a database that feature piano solo music. Although that's expanding, we're including soon chamber and concertos, but mainly piano focused music by composers that have been historically excluded. So composers of color, women composers, like that.
Mhm.
And this project is very dear to me because, well, I see myself sometimes as a member of the marginalized community, as a immigrant. I'm also a first generation college student, so I feel um, a personal connection to these underrepresented communities. So um, that's still ongoing, and we're still, generating other projects. Like, we recently created a online course that feature works in our database, and we have other things on the horizon. So it's kind of like a my side project outside of my work. um, and I'm also the director of the Community Scholars Program at the Blair School of Music. This is a new scholarship program that's aims to support socioeconomic mobility, but also to cultivate community leaders through the arts. So with this program, um, there's a lot that I do, but mainly my mission is to aim to expose the scholars in this program to various resources and opportunities, and to help them implement their talents and skills to build a community here in Nashville. So yeah, as a part of their big project, they're supposed to launch, like a capstone project that's supposed to benefit the community. And so this is in its first year right now, and I'm excited to see as it unfolds and what cool things our students are going to be doing. So yeah, so that's kind of like a short overview of what I do with community engagement. Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, we're about at time. So thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us today. We're really excited for your upcoming performance.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah.